I'm your host, Nicholas Tui, and welcome to With Random Awesome People, the show about ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. Join us as they share with us their life experiences and what they went through to get to where they are right now. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rap. And with me today, it's a slow, easy morning on the first day of the enhanced movement control order. Today itself, I've got a very good friend of mine, Richard Ong. Now, he is the head of group risk management for Sime Darby Berhad, but he is speaking on his own volition, speaking on his own behalf. So, before we cut across all this stuff, I'm going to say that the opinions that Richard and myself put on this podcast, it's strictly based on our own personal interpretation of what's going on. So, Richard, welcome to the show. How are you doing today? Do you want to give me maybe give us a bit of an introduction about yourself?
Hi, Nick. Good morning, and thanks for inviting me over the show. So I think you've made a good introduction of me. I'm Richard. I'm currently working in Sime Tabi Berhad as the head of group risk management. I've only been with Sime Tabi since 2016, and in between, I left Sime to join an Australian multinational for a couple of months. Prior to that, I was with some other GLCs in telcos like Axiata, and throughout my career, I've been doing risk, audit, and governance. So is that cool, Nick?
Yeah, go. Awesome. And I guess
Yeah, all
the
right.
reason why I have Richard in this call is that, Richard and I talk often. We can, shoot the shit about everything and anything. But at the end of the day, we're a bit more focused. We'll talk about the national stimulus program, right? So essentially, the stimulus package that the government has put out. So there's two stimulus packages that they announced. And I thought to myself, if I wanted a bit more information, look, I'm a layman. I'm not a financial savvy person at the end of it all. I know that if I make X amount of money and I spend Y amount of expenses and get Z amount of savings, right? But I actually wanted to get an expert into the conversation. So Richard, he's a great risk subject matter expert. He did finance. He's got all these things. His whole career is built about around financial risk, business continuity, and essentially I wanted to pick his brain on top of all this. So let me just highlight it first. So basically, in my knowledge, there are two stimulus packages. The first stimulus package of RM 20 billion, and the second stimulus package of RM 250 billion. So let's talk a bit about that, Richard. I mean, I'll leave it to you. How do you want to have a conversation around this? Do you want to break it down on package per package, or do you want to look at it as a whole?
Okay, Nick. Thanks for those compliment. But I guess I have to qualify myself. I'm not really a financial expert, but of course I do get involved with all this stuff. And as part of our risk management, I will have to know what sort of packages are there that's being offered by the government. How would this impact or perhaps have certain risk aspects out of it? So I think, Nick, before we move on, I'll just briefly mention or briefly give a rundown of what are the stimulus packages and the details of it. So yeah, right. There are two stimulus packages. One that was announced earlier by the previous Prime Minister, to Dr. Mahathir, and this was announced barely when the pandemic just started, and at the point of time it wasn't a pandemic yet. So this first stimulus package was a 20 billion package, and if you look into the details, the key themes for this was mainly to spur the travel and tourism sector, right? Because at the point of time, I guess it was taking a bit of heat due to the outbreak, right? And as also to alleviate the burden of
Mm-hmm.
people, especially the B40 group, and of course incentivize the healthcare providers. Right. So these were the three key themes
Mm-hmm.
that came along with the first stimulus. All right, and this was targeted at the tourism and travel sectors. It offers, amongst others, a 1,000 ringgit tax relief on domestic travel related expenditure. All right, so this applies for everyone. There are digital vouchers for domestic tourism to make domestic tourism more affordable. EPF contribution went down to just 7%.
Mm-hmm.
That's optional, from the 11% down to 7%, right? Uh, the Bantuan Sara Hidup, I think this was there all the while, all right? It's 100 ringgit. There's a 50 ringgit E29, one-off payment of 600 ringgit for taxi drivers, bus and tour guide, right? And there's 400 ringgit allowance for healthcare providers,
Okay.
and 200 ringgit allowance for immigration staff. So these were pretty much what came along with the first stimulus package. So if you look at how it was packaged, it's more to target the domestic travel, right? Because domestic travel is one of the key
Was this stimulus
industries.
package broadcasted out? Was it, to my knowledge, this wasn't really that apparent in the initial stages. And the only thing that I knew about really was the EPF contribution down to 7%. And even that only because I'm part of a HR community, right? Part of a HR of an organization. So was this really, what did he really announce it per se? Or, was it slowly just rolled out at the start of the year?
I guess it was announced, but it was announced amidst the political chaos. If you recall, Nick, I think uh, barely a month ago we had this political impasse where we were struggling to come up with a
Mhm.
government. And at that point of time, I guess Tun M was appointed as the interim prime minister. So I suppose this was announced during that period of time, and the
Mhm.
focus was more on the political impasse rather more than this stimulus package. Yeah,
Yeah, Malaysians were more interested in the juicy bits than the money coming
of
towards them.
course.
Okay, so let's break it
Yeah.
down bit by bit, right? So when we talk about, yeah, when we talk about we're talking about tourism and travel sector. So obviously they didn't take into account that this pandemic is going to go to such proportions. So does this whole thing then become more relevant overall when we talk about an increase in tourism and travel sector?
Mm. Well, at that point of time, I guess we the government didn't think of any lockdown. Of course, 1 month down the road, we are in the MCO, and I guess the domestic travel tax relief, things like the digital vouchers for domestic tourism, these may not be relevant for now. But once the MCO is lifted, we could be a good impetus to re kickstart the economy, especially in terms of travel and tourism.
Hmm. And I know that there's a common community, uh, I guess, sense of responsibility when when this MCO is reduced or lifted. If you want to spend money and travel, do it locally, right? Put it back to our own community, put it back to our own country. I think it's a really relevant point as well. I want to talk about the EPF contribution down to 7% because obviously that is most, if not all, everyone's monthly salary portion, right? It goes to EPF unless you're a daily rate salary person. But I think that also cuts across to if you're contributing to your own EPF, then that happens as well. So a bit of a part of a internal HR news for everyone. It's actually they reduced it automatically, and if you want to opt out, then you have to write into them to put it back to not take 7% but keep it as 11. So that was part of the memorandum that we were given. So it worked the other way around as
Yeah.
opposed to last time we were trying to reduce from you had the option to move it from 11 to 8%. Now, it, let's say I move my EPF contribution from 11 to 7%, and that additional 4%. Is that part of that 20 billion? Are they counting the part of our money, or is it not part of that 20 billion stimulus in the first place?
Well, I'm not too sure about that, Nick. But in most instances, when the government announce such packages, the amount tends to be wholesome, and I probably think it would include the amount, the 4% contribute the 4% contribution from the lower EPF contribution. I suppose so. Um, and that is actually a significant portion of this whole package if you think about it, right? Because EPF sits on a very large coffers, and that 4% makes a lot of difference to give the government more disposable income to run the economy. So, but I guess also in most instances, people would tend to stick with 11%. I mean, amongst working professionals, people who are more well off, I guess, they would stick to 11% rather than run it down to 7%. The fact that these are for your life savings, these are your
Mhm.
post retirement savings, so it's probably wiser to keep it at 11%.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also I mean, from my knowledge, I'm not trying to give any confidential information, but when I had a conversation with my HR peers in the community, we tend to find that younger individuals pushed it down to 7% because they wanted that more expendable. Sorry, they wanted more expendable income on a month-to-month basis. So I guess for them, the ability to spend more now is more critical
Yeah,
than saving for
yeah.
when they turn 55 or 65. So I think yeah, I'm not sure if it's short-sightedness, but I guess the point where if you're earning less than a certain amount of money, any extra additional dollar you have would be good now as well.
I guess, Nick, in a way, this is also a bit like some corporations have their own flexible benefits, the flexi benefits. So it's an either or option. So if you can choose to use now
Hmm.
and save or not save for later, or the other way around. So I think it works in that same aspect as well.
Do you then see it
Yeah.
because when we talk about flexible benefits, I guess I'm nitpicking on the role. When we talk about flexible benefits, it's something which a corporation is giving you. Say, I've 10 benefits, right? You choose which equal to X amount of money. Now you choose what you want to use it on. If you, let's say, for example, you're a gym person, active, whatever it is, you take more towards that health and lifestyle part. Now, if you think that you have a family and you want it to be more focused on specialist care, medical, things that are more alleviating needs for day-to-day family, then you push it towards that other five parts which help on the family bit. But bottom line is the flexi benefits is coming from an organization, right? But this one it actually comes from ourselves, right? We are in a way
Mm.
sacrificing our future to use that money now. Now, do you see that as a trend when employees are given more ownership on their own money management?
Well, I guess I agree with you when you mentioned just now that the youngsters, the younger generations tend to will probably go on this route of bringing the EPF contribution down to 7%, so that there's more for them to spend. But
Mhm.
I guess for working professionals with family, it people will probably think of post-retirement savings as a priority, and hence I guess
Mhm.
they would stick to 11% rather than running down to 7%. So I guess this is,
Yeah.
is it, it's something by choice. It's not something that anyone would have the same thoughts to it.
I guess when you start having a family and kids, you realize that the money you make isn't isn't yours anymore. It goes to the family and future kids.
Yes. That's
All
absolutely
right.
true, Nick.
Yeah. Now, let's round off the last few things that I definitely want your opinion on this 20 billion stimulus. So, RM50E29, um, obviously that's again something similar to RM30E29, which we can utilize of the government. So I think you can get it via Grab, but you can get it via Touch and Go, all that kind of stuff. And I think both Grab and Touch and Go especially was doing a good job in terms of returning it. It's not their fault that the app crashed a bit, of course, but talking about everyone who probably uses Touch and Go. Then it's a one-off payment for cab drivers, bus and tour guides. Then 400 allowance for healthcare providers and 200 for immigration staff. My question to you is, in terms of looking from a risk and BCP point of view, is that enough? Is 600 enough for cab drivers, bus and tour guides? Is 200 enough for immigration staff? And my most important one is 400 allowance enough for healthcare providers? Don't they need more? And who constitutes as healthcare providers?
I guess, Nick, that question is really not for me to answer. Uh, I'm neither, I'm not working neither in those
Mhm.
professions. But in any case, I guess when you ask the people
Yeah.
in the room, they would obviously say it's not enough, right? The money's never enough for anyone, right? But I guess
Yeah.
it's a good start that if you look at how this stimulus package is being crafted, um, it is addressing addressing the key individuals, addressing the key issues, and of course we need the healthcare providers to serve at this very point of time the frontliners, and these are a very important group of people, and hence
Hmm.
we have to give them something to keep the line running, right? As for the immigration stuff, I guess this is when it's important for them to increase scrutiny on the cross-border travels whilst we are at the lockdown. All right, I guess that's
Yeah.
important for them as well.
Hmm.
And for taxi drivers, bus and tour guides, well, I guess these are probably the most affected people throughout this whole crisis, right? Because they're probably going to sit home and do not have anything to do
Hmm.
whilst this lockdown is happening. So I guess it starts with a little bit of something. But the other argument is that I guess you heard of
Yeah.
this phrase or this saying that when you give well, if you give a fisher, if you give a fish to a fisherman, uh, or you teach a fisherman how to
Yeah.
fish, right? So I guess it goes back to this
I
same
guess
argument,
yeah.
whether or not you want to continue giving
Mhm.
such cash payouts, right, which is one off, and probably wouldn't solve the long term issues of productivity and other issues, but it probably alleviates a bit of a cash burden for now.
And I do know some healthcare providers, as you do as well, and any cab drivers, bus and tour guide people, people in hospitality. And if you use that fisherman analogy, the fisherman, quote unquote, that I know, metaphorically, would always want to go and fish rather than be given a fish, right? I think they enjoy that work. They want to see the boons of their trade. So I guess for
Mm,
me, this is towards more
yeah.
towards the positive side. Look, I don't mind to take my tax money and you know help the cab drivers, the healthcare providers, the immigration people, because I know that all these three elements are heavily affected by what's happening right now. So I'm a dutiful Malaysian, so I'm happy to to do put my contribution. If I can't go out there and help you guys, then hey, look, whatever
Yeah.
bit that you take from me, which I dutifully agree to give, then if it helps them, by all means, let's do it. We're all in this together anyway. Okay. So let's talk about the okay. So to wrap off the 20 billion stimulus package,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
your overall view
Yes.
into it?
Well, I guess this is it's not a big stimulus package, and it's a very targeted one. So like what I say, the
Hmm.
key theme is it's aimed at spurring the travel and tourism sector, and in a way, alleviate cash burden of a certain group of people, especially the P40. Well, some say is that this is a political package. Well, in that case, all stimulus packages have certain
Hmm.
political elements as well. Um, but for me, I guess there's nothing much to
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
this package has to offer that could really kickstart the economy all over again. Where we are in a very precarious situation when it comes to the economy. So this 20 billion package may be too small to give a lifeline or probably give a knee-jerk effect to this economic situation that we're in now.
Yeah. Uh, I agree. I mean, like, I know it seems very nonchalant to say, but 20 billion at this point in time is too small. I never thought I'll say those words, but yeah, 20 billion is too little. Now let's talk about the
Yeah.
250 billion stimulus package, where you know it's more towards assistance to public, incentivize frontliners, healthcare, police, defense, etc., and also to help out businesses,
Mm.
particularly the SMEs. I read somewhere that SMEs constitute about over 70% of the businesses in Malaysia. Obviously, that number could be a bit exaggerated, but
Yeah.
but then again, we have to look at what constitutes as SME. So, um, could you maybe round off what this 250 billion package would be for us, Richard?
Okay, sure, Nick. So this the second stimulus package is a big one, right? It's 10 times the size of the first one. It's 250 billion now, and for me, this is really an emergency package, right? It's a do or die package because all countries
Hmm.
that are currently in this situation have already announced their own set of financial stimulus packages, and we have to do the same because we're talking about the livelihood of people and how to keep our lives
Hmm.
moving on for the next 2 to 3 months to come amidst this lockdown. So the key themes for this stimulus is number one, providing financial assistance to the public. And by public, I mean I'm referring to mainly the M40 and the B40 groups, right? These are the most affected people. out of this. Continue to incentivize the front. Yeah.
Let me jump in on that one. What is M40 and B40?
Oh, sorry. So M40 and B40 refers to the group of B40 refers to the group of people that is well, hang on. This is a bit technical. Hang on, yeah. Okay. So now the B40 refers to below the 40% of the population that is earning below the income, the standard income. All right. The middle 40 are the ones who are earning in the middle
Mm.
tier, right? And so the 80% of the population are earning of probably struggling in terms of the financial income that they earn. So this refers to that group of people, essentially.
Okay, so middle 40 and below 40. So obviously that's at the 20% that's above average in terms of earning revenue, and that generates that average salary, I say average
Correct.
revenue per household,
Yes.
per
Yes.
individual throughout
There
the
are
year.
certain definitions to this, like there is a median
Okay,
income that is
so that,
measured to define what is B40 and
mhm.
M40, but I don't have uh, that detail off my head for now.
No worries, Richard. You're not the government, no problem. So I'm not going to put you on a stand
Yeah.
here to have this
Okay.
conversation. So what's your view on
Yeah.
this? So looking from your risk point of view, what are these stimuluses given by the government?
Yeah, so the stimulus provides financial assistance to the public, which is essentially the M40 and B40 group. Continue to incentivize the frontliners, the healthcare providers, the police and defense, alleviate cash flow, in particular the SMEs. So these are the three key themes that comes along with this second stimulus. So if I can just give a bit of rundown of what are the key elements, the 400 allowance that
Sure.
was announced as part of the first package has been increased to 600 uh, 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 for healthcare providers. Now the 200 allowance for defense and security personnel, there is an allowance for that. For household income below uh, 4,000, there's a 1,000 ringgit cash handout, and this will be paid out in April and 600 in May. Household between 4 to 8,000, there's a 500 handout in April and 600 in May. And of course, there's cash handouts for singles and students as well. Um, what There are deferment of the PTPTN loan repayment for students, a subsidy of 600 ringgit per employee, 500
Mhm.
ringgit one-off payment for e-hailing drivers. There's discount on electricity, free internet plans, 6 months loan moratorium. SMEs can get access to cheaper loans, where it's 3.5% instead of 3.75%, deferment of tax submission deadlines. And I guess something that's
Yep.
applicable to all of us is the withdrawal of EPF, your account too, by 500 ringgit per month. And application, and if you are actually affected where you
Yep.
are being forced to take unpaid leave, there's an option for you to apply special assistance from the National Disaster Management Agency for some cash payout as well. So essentially, this is what comes along with this package, and I think that
Mhm.
in most instances you can see that there's a lot of cash handouts being forked out of this package.
Okay, so let's talk about it a bit more in detail, right? So we increased the allowance 400, 600 for healthcare providers, additional stuff like that. Now, obviously, the household below 4,000 to 1,000 cash handout, household between 4 to 8K. There's also individuals where you are a single person, you're not married, you do get some cash handout as well. Obviously, there's a lot more details go into that. Now, how does that affect us as a whole? I mean, take for example, let's put a hypothetical scenario, right? A person like yourself, right? You're the occupation where there's a monthly salary, right? And you have a young daughter, young wife. Thank you, Mr. Song. Um, and also you have a steady job that allows you to work from home because your organization is big enough to be technologically linked and technologically sound. All right. How does that affect you, this stimulus, versus a person, say, for example, who is in the M40 bit? They've got a say, a job that pays them maybe 4 to 5 thousand. But it also depends on them moving about in a day. They probably have to do service for sales or stuff like that, with a family as well. So how does that affect both sides? So, take for example, I mean, I know the government uses the hypothetical
Mm,
Machikia, right? The hypothetical figure representing the group, largely by the people of the group. This people are representing the
mm.
people from this particular group. How does that person differ from you per se? What's the distinction between these two individuals, and what are they going to get or not going to receive from this particular stimulus
Okay,
package?
Nick, I guess if you look at the rundown of the details, yes, the main the main focus, yeah, the main purpose of this stimulus, it's again targeted at the M40 and the B40 group. So when you look at the house with the allowances given, right, these are for household below 4,000 and household between 4 to 8,000. So these two categories are
Mm-hmm.
probably referring to the
Mm-hmm.
M40 and the B40 group, right? But that does not mean that the other individuals uh, are left out as well. Because if you look at the other rundowns, the other details of the package, you have discount on electricity, right? You got free internet plan. There's deferment of tax submission and withdrawal of EPF and stuff like that. Well, I guess everyone gets a hand on the pie, whether it's big or small.
Yeah.
There is a differentiation, but I guess it's for me it's quite a fair package that serves everyone in the interest of the public. Well, the group that's the only group that's complaining that there's insufficient out of this package is the SMEs, which they feel that the government could have done more to give them more benefits out of the stimulus package. Currently, I guess the ones that stands out for the SME would be the subsidy of 600 ringgit per employee. Of course, employees will earn less than 4,000, and where their businesses are hit with 50% drop since January. So, well, SMEs find it that this is a bit too little to spur or to help them to keep going for the next few months to come. So, well, I guess there's no one package that's going to please everyone.
Yeah.
But for me, this is quite a comprehensive package, and it's quite a smart way of packaging this as well, because the government is using the private sector to help out. Well, you got the telcos to chip in terms of free internet plan. You have the banks to chip in terms of the loan moratorium, right? And you have the Inland Revenue Board to defer on tax, right?
Yeah.
And so it's and you have the TNB to defer to have to
Mm-hmm.
give discounts on electricity. So for me, I guess it's a smart way of packaging this. And yes, this is primarily for the makcik kios, and makcik kios are referring to, well, the more unfortunate group of people who have to live by the day. Well, in Malay they call it kais pagi makan pagi, kais petang makan petang. These are the group of people that really needs this cash handout for now.
So let's go a bit in terms of the drill down on a couple of things, right? So, um, let's talk about 6 months loan moratorium. So what's the benefit in this? If you have the, let's say you have a housing loan or a car loan or whatever it is, do you want to take up the 6 months loans moratorium? Does that benefit, people who are servicing loans right now?
Mm. Again, Nick, it's a question by choice. And if you remember this time, we briefly spoke about
Mhm.
whether you want to choose to have your EPF contribution pushed down from 11% to 7%. It's up to you, because um, the loan moratorium
Mhm.
doesn't mean that this loan is wiped off. The 6 months loan is wiped off from your loan. It doesn't mean it's not that case. What it means to say is that your loan is being extended by another 6 months, right? So if you choose not to pay for the 6 months now, it will
Mhm.
still be counted into your loan package. The interest accrues accordingly within the 6 months, and you still have to pay for it, right? So it's a question of whether you choose to pay it now or pay it later. But I guess for some, again, question by choice, they will probably prefer waive it for the first 6 months now that because of this crisis. But probably for some, it's better off to just continue paying and service the loan more efficiently. Yeah,
Yeah, I guess the options given to us, so we do have to make our own choices in terms of determining what we want to do.
correct.
I guess the 6 months
Yeah.
loan moratorium is, more evidently if you have a business that's severely affected by the current crisis. So with that, you don't have that much, liquidable cash in hand, or
Mm,
steady income flow coming in that allows you to serve for it. So obviously you can defer it to go into it. And I think the good thing about this is that they didn't put any compounding interest if we push it across the next 6 months. So, say for
yeah.
example, if you got a 5-year car loan or a 5-year vehicle loan for your business, I mean, and you've got 4 years left, right? I mean, what's additional 6 months towards it to sort of ease your burden the
Yeah.
next 6 months now?
Yeah.
So I think that's fair enough for the government as well. Um, what about, okay? So I guess it's you also wrote that, I mean, obviously this stimulus aims to address certain matters, right? You you mentioned
Mm.
that the B40s and 47 enough to sustain their lives, right? It's because they work on a daily rate. Um, One of the things that they wanted to do was to maintain GDP growth. Now, why is this still critical at such a time? Why do you still need to stimulus? Why do we need to put in a stimulus to improve our GDP growth?
Okay. Well, the GDP is always a very important measurement of how we are progressing well in how the economy is progressing well, right? And I think for this year, the government has targeted a growth of between 4.5% to 4.8%. Well, and that assumption is already uh,
Mhm.
probably at the lower end because we know that we are facing a lot of factors, a lot of macroeconomic factors, even before this crisis. I mean, we had the issues of the U.S. trade war, right? We have the issue of low oil prices. We have issues of not
Mhm.
so active domestic consumptions. We have issues of unemployment as well. So we have to keep the economy moving, right? And GDP is perhaps
Yep.
a very important measure of of the economy. So yes, this package is critical. Um, Number one, it keeps people's lives moving, especially the B40 and F40 group. Um, and this is also to avoid high unemployment, right? Because if the SMEs go out
Mhm.
of business in the next few months to come, that could spell danger for approximately 15 million jobs in the country. SMEs cater for at least two-thirds of the country's 15 million jobs. Sorry, not 15 million, so two-thirds of 15 million uh,
Mhm.
would probably be at risk, right? So I think previously the SME Association warned that 4 million jobs could be lost if this continues to happen and if they do not get enough
Mhm.
benefits or help from the government. So unemployment is another big key risk factor that could impact us for the few months to come if we do not take care of the SMEs as well as the livelihood of people. So and it's also to in a way we already at a situation where we have very low oil prices, right? It's currently trading at about 20 over US dollars. It's all time low. So oil is essential because it's one of the primary
Mhm.
markets that the economy thrives on. So if this continues to drop, the economy would spell danger as well. So I guess this whole stimulus is important in the sense that it has to keep people's lives moving. It has to keep businesses moving, right? So that when the MCO, when the lockdown is lifted, right, we can quickly go back into the normal pace of economy. Yeah, I think that's what essential how essential it is.
So it's getting back to our previous pace, and even maybe trying to go higher than the previous pace when all this is done with, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess for me side, we'll try to wrap up this whole thing, I guess. What's your overall view on 250 billion stimulus? And you know, of course, you mentioned earlier as well, right? This stimulus package does create a big gap in the government's pockets, and to cover the whole, um, when we come back into action to cover that particular loan per se, we've started to do it quickly to get the economy back on track soon. So as you mentioned earlier as well, if this goes on too long, then we could spell danger for the economy. Oil prices low, all that kind of stuff as well. So what's the role of a Malaysian in this? What's my role as a Malaysian? How do I contribute from the confines of my house, apartment, room, whatever it is? So how do I contribute as a Malaysian in this particular with this particular economic stimulus package?
Well, I guess the most essential thing to do now, and if you remember what our PM mentioned, the tagline is that stay at home, and that's perhaps what the least that we can do now amidst all the
Yeah.
situation, because the biggest problem that we have now is that the numbers are spiraling and it's not going down, right? And as long as the numbers are there, as long as we still have infection and high death rates, right? Of course, we're not that high as compared to other countries, but still not doing too well. But as long as this is there, the lockdown cannot be lifted. And for as long as that
Mhm.
happens, we are stuck in the doldrum. We cannot do anything, right? I mean, people can't run their business. We can't travel to other countries. We can't do investments. Everything will be in standstill. So I guess the first and foremost most important thing to do for us as the general public, and the least that we can do is stay home, help the government to combat this infection, bring down the curve, all right, and yeah, I think that's the first thing that we should look at
Mhm.
for now. And I guess the second thing to do is well, yeah,
Excellent. And
yeah. When I guess the second thing to do is we
sorry,
still
go ahead,
have to
Richard.
keep the domestic consumption is of course one of the key aspects of the economy, and well, we can do our part by well, chipping in terms of buying stuff through online, right? We can still do that. We can still order food online, keep the business moving, right? Keep the money going on within the economy. Uh, Even it's at a very very
Mhm.
low capacity, but that helps in a way to keep the momentum moving, right? Because if everything is still at this rate, well, you would see that the, our currency will go down, right? And everything would be at a very slow pace economy.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You don't want that slow burn slowly going down as well.
Yeah,
And yes, we do agree that
yeah,
most, if not all, the other countries who are facing this, their economies could take a downturn as well. So, comparatively to international markets, stuff like that, we're not making such a big of a loss here, right? So obviously the strength of our currency goes down, but the strength of other countries' currencies are going down as well. So, I think this is the only time where globally we're all in this together. If we break it down regionally to each of our individual country, we have to sort of work really hard to ensure that
yeah,
we don't slump. At least we're still going along at a very slow pace, but we're
yeah,
moving ahead, and obviously be prepared to stimulate the economy again when this MCO is lifted and we finally, flatten the curve. And yeah, I do agree. Stay home, stay healthy. um, this is the best time for any Malaysian to do what they love to do and help the country, which is to live out at
yeah,
home, do nothing, buy stuff online, eat, and in doing that, you're really helping yourself, your family, your fellow
yeah.
Malaysians, right? Cool. So, Richard, I do appreciate your time. Thank you again very much for the time that you've given to talk to me about this. I hope that content is going to make some sense to some people out there who find it a bit too difficult. Of course, obviously, we'll put some links up in terms of the economic stimulus package for you to read up upon. I know we're nearing towards the start of the day. You've got a young daughter. She's going to probably get up and
Yeah.
take your time for the whole day now. That's the plus of working at home.
Yep. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for inviting me over the show. And yes, everyone stay safe. We can get through this. And well, all the best to everyone.
All right, take care. Thank you again, Richard. All the best for your wife and daughter. Have a good one, man.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
If you'd like to find out more about the show and listen to other episodes, you can subscribe to us on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, or whichever platform you use. Do leave us a comment, feedback, or rating. That will help us out a lot. Our Instagram handle is @withrandomawesomepeople. If you could tell a friend about the show or share it on social media, every little bit helps. Thank you again for your time, and we'll see you on the next episode.